financially free? Raise your hand. In fact, say aye. Aye. You'll get used to this sort of stuff. I know, we're all British, we don't do all this American stuff. Yes, you do today. You know why? Because I need to get you to step outside your comfort zone. If you do what you've always done, as Einstein said, you'll get what? Well, you'll get what you always got, yeah. Here's the thing as well. I've had the opportunity, I surround myself with people who force me to raise my game. Environment is probably the most important thing. In other words, trying to do something on your own is a recipe for failure. Get around the people who are in the same game, who are playing at a higher level than you, will make the biggest impact on you. Because, and here's why, it's the psychology behind it, if you hang out with people at a higher level than you consistently, you have to raise your game so that you can stay in the club. Does that make sense? We have a human need for connection. So we want to be around, that's why we're tribal. That's why we started out in tribes. Because what you may or may not know is ultimately, as human beings, regardless of how sophisticated we think we are and how smart our phones are, we are still wired for one thing: survival. Not happiness, not financial freedom, survival. But here's the thing: if you are going to, what does survival ultimately mean, really? Because your subconscious mind looks around and goes, you're okay, you're alive, you've got food, don't rock the boat. But if you want to achieve a goal that you haven't achieved yet, by definition, does that require a change? Yes. Of course it does. So you're going, I want to get to financial freedom. And your oldest part of your brain in evolutionary terms is going, no, everything's cool, you got food, you got shelter, don't go anywhere. So you go, your rational part of your brain goes, no, we're taking a step. Because of course, here's where you are today, and we'll talk more about it in a second. Here's where you want to get to, financial freedom. What have we got? A gap. So you're over here and you go, you know what, I'm going to take a step. So most people take one step. How do they feel in the gap? Scared. So what do? They step back. They go, well, I'll give it another go next year. Next January I'll set some more resolutions. I'll do that. Now I get it. Some of the guys looking at me going, I'm not scared. But I get it. Guys, we don't do scared. We get stressed. It's just another word for scared. That's all it is. Human beings are human beings. I roll here today to share strategy with you, to share plans with you, to share a journey with you, to kick your butt, get you to financial freedom. I'm on a mission at the moment. Next 10 years, my life is basically focused on, I want to really help 1 million people change their financial destiny. That's my primary goal. I love speaking, I love sharing ideas, I love seeing the instant impact I can have, and that's why I do this. So therefore, I need you to be willing to come on this journey with me, which is going to require a little bit of commitment from you. The one thing I can't give you is commitment. I'll share with you actually how you can tap into it, because you've all got it. So I'll share some of the key things that allow you to tap into it, along the way of sharing the overseas property. Because we're going to close the gap, we need a vehicle that can viably do it, of course. So today that vehicle's property. And we'll talk more about why property is so powerful, why it's so useful, why it's a great vehicle. Because I don't know where you are now, but some of you, for example, are probably employed. Who's employed? So you're working for somebody else, you've got a job. You know, you do what you've got to do, as a billionaire friend of mine shared with me. Sometimes you do what you've got to do in order to be able to do what you want to do. So I get that, and you know, absolutely, if you've got to, but here's the thing, is a job, by definition, a vehicle for financial freedom? No, because you're giving up your time, you're selling your time. What you want to do is start buying your time back. Nobody ever gets to the end of their life, looks back and said, I wish I spent more time in the office. Nobody. So my goal then is to get to this place. So we're going to have fun, hopefully. I'm going to cajole you, inspire you at times, hopefully. But I am ultimately going to kick your butt. In 20 years, I've seen the patterns. I've literally seen people come back to another event. So I see the same people in the audience, and they've still done nothing. So I've really got to a point where it's like, you know what? I mean, there was a time where I really was like, so I'll push people, I'll drive them, I'll carry them along if necessary. That's exhausting. Actually, one morning my wife said to me, I was running around the world, like literally, I was never off a plane in 2014. never off a plane. It's like, literally, I remember one time I got back into Heathrow, I got in my car, I live in Somerset, by the way. So driving back to Somerset, I get a call saying, we've got an event in Singapore, this was Wednesday, we've got an event in Singapore on Friday, can you make it? I'm like, how many in the room? 300. Wow, what do they want? They all want to, again, want to make their businesses better, want to build more property. I said, great, I'll be there, I want to make a difference. It was actually, anybody see the movie Wolf of Wall Street? Yeah, Jordan Belfort? Belfort, yeah. It was his event, so I got to meet him as well. Yeah, so I had lunch with the Wolf of Wall Street. I'm a celebrity. Sorry. Jordan Belfort, by the way, exactly how you'd expect it to be. It's great having lunch with somebody who only talks about themselves. But anyway, so I went and I, so literally got home, threw my washing in the laundry, kissed the kids and my wife, repacked and got back on a plane again. It's exhausting. It literally is exhausting. So I've realised that one, I've cut back on that, because obviously my time's important to me as well. But more importantly, it's like, how can I leverage? How can I leverage what I do? How can I reach more people? When I try to just do no talking, by nature, I'm not a full-on extrovert, but I am an ambivert. I miss the speaking. So I had to put some back in, so hence partly why I'm here. But my goal then is to kick your butt. That's what this today is about. Is everybody okay with that? Yes. Anybody not okay with that? Because I'm still going to do it regardless. The other thing you should know as well, I'm a 3rd dan black belt in shotgun karate. So if you don't follow what I'm sharing with you, and you don't act on it, and you don't get on the path to financial freedom, I will find you. You think I'm kidding? All right, so some of you may be employees, obviously that's not necessarily the vehicle, so you need to, but then originally, after the Second World War, of course, we launched the National Health Service and everything else in the UK, and then there was this whole scheme around pensions. The idea of a pension was that you pay into it through your working career, through being employed. So the idea that ultimately it would make you financially free. And that worked brilliantly for the baby boomers. The baby boomers are all pretty much retiring now. There's 3 waves of baby boomers. They're all now retiring. And of course, we've seen challenges with pensions. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are some that are working, which work okay. But the number of people I've met who put money into a pension never looked at it. Because what have they done? Abdicated responsibility to somebody else for their financial destiny. And then when I've raised it, said, you might want to have a look what's in there. And I've met so many people who've looked in it and gone, oh, there's less in it than I've paid into it. Because of fees and things that didn't necessarily pan out. It's like, you cannot abdicate responsibility. At the end of the day, it's your life, your freedom. So you want to be in charge of it. Obviously, have pensions if that's what you want to do. Have all these different instruments, some of them are brilliant. But pay attention to it. So some of you might be employed 60 years to get to a place of financial freedom. Let's speed that up a little bit today. Some of you might be self-employed. Okay, so again, predominantly exchanging time for money. So I meet a lot of coaches, consultants, legal professionals, people like that, who again, working very hard, some of them making very good income, but at what cost? And then people who, it's already got a few properties. Okay, you keep hand if you got over 5. Over 10. A few of you, oh, fantastic. All right, I'm going to come to you guys specifically just for a quick moment. What do you want to get from today?
Looking at investing in a different way.
A different way, okay. Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to share some strategies, so hopefully that'll tick that box. Yourself? You just want to suck knowledge up. Okay, like a Hoover. Yes. Okay. Was it yourself? Who was yourself? Okay. What would you like? Is there anything specific you want to get from today?
Just look for new ideas, new strategies.
New ideas, new strategies. All right, cool. All right, that's good. That's what I'm certainly going to share a lot with you, and hopefully it will be something brand new for you. One of the things I do see with people, of course, is the tax aspect. We're going to talk a little bit about tax, like 15 minutes. It tends to be very popular because, of course, everybody's kind of focused on avoiding tax or paying as little as possible. So I will share kind of 2 rules to make you efficient with tax. Regardless of how big your portfolio is, they will work. So we'll get into that as well. But ultimately, it is, as I said, let's close this gap. So what you're going to need to close the gap, a couple of things. One, you need to think differently. Secondly, you're going to need a plan, which includes a strategy. So you're going to need to choose a strategy. Thirdly, of course, once you've got your strategy, you'll need the skills to execute the strategy. Now, you could read a strategy in a book, but does that mean you know how to go out and use it? Like I've got And don't get me wrong, I like what I read a lot. I think books are very, very useful. And I followed the traditional path. Like I went to school, my parents were very much work hard, get good grades, so I did all of that. So I got good O-levels, then I went on to do A-levels, I got decent A-levels, so I went to university, and I was the first person in my family to go to university. So my nana was so proud. She literally stopped people in the street and said, my grandson's at university, you know, so I was the first one there. So I followed that path, because obviously when you're a kid, you know, my parents, obviously, what do you want for your children? A better life. And their belief was, to get a better life, I needed a better what? Better education, so I could get a better job. So I got a job. So I came out of university, went from university, I studied chemical engineering, by the way, of all things. I was good at maths. Yeah, quite. I was good at maths, but I didn't want to do pure maths. I went and did chemical engineering. So I thought, oh, something practical, get your hands a little bit dirty. So I did that. In my 3rd year in university, in the summer, they put me on placement. So I did 6 weeks for a company, I don't even know if they still exist, called Associated Octel. Who remembers when they used to put lead in petrol? Yeah, they made the lead alkyls that went in petrol. So, you know, we're going back a number of years. 30 odd years since I was in university. So I did 6 weeks with them. When I got back from that 6 weeks, the one thing I absolutely knew, I didn't want to be a chemical engineer. So I then moved from Birmingham to London. I got a job working in a software house. The company at the time was called BIS Banking Systems. Guess what they designed? Banking systems. How interesting do you think banking is? Pretty dull. And here's the other thing as well, of course. When you're a student, what time do you get out of bed? When you feel like it. All of a sudden, I was in a role where they expected me to be at a desk at 9 o'clock, and they expected me, so they said, to be there till 5 o'clock. Actually, what they wanted was to be there till 8 o'clock. And I couldn't understand it. It's like, why does it matter how much time I spend at my desk? Surely the results matter more than the time. You'd think. And they said that to me in the interview. They said, oh, you know, we reward performance, we reward people getting results. No. They rewarded people who stayed at their desk longer than anybody else. But I didn't. 5 o'clock I was out the door because I had things to do. So I lasted just over a year. And they fired me. So yeah, so I got fired. I then had to get another job. So I got a second job. I actually went to work for a bank in their IT department. They had a restaurant, so that was an incentive for me to actually turn up. So each day I got a great lunch. I lasted 9 months, and then one morning I rolled in about 11 o'clock, sorry. I rolled in about 11 o'clock. The head of the department, the director, called me into his office, and he fired me. So I went home. I was living in London. I was earning £12,000 a year gross salary, so therefore I could afford a 1-bed flat with 2 other friends. So there was 3 guys living in a 1-bed flat. Guess how tidy it was. So I get home. One of my friends used to work for British Gas. He's out. The other friend, Piers, he was basically worked in a bar at night. So during the day he was at home. So I get home. He's like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I've just been fired." He went, "Great." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Take a look at this." And he showed me an advert in the paper. And Piers grew up in Cornwall. So he grew up on the beach. He grew up sailing, surfing, anything to do with water. He was phenomenal at. So he shows me this advert, and the advert basically said, "Wanted sailing instructors for an adventure holiday company in the south of France." I looked at it and said, "Piers, I'm from Manchester. I've never even been in a boat." He goes, "Don't worry about it, I'll teach you everything you need to know." I said, "Okay," so I ring this number. This is the old days of real phones. I ring this number, this lady answers. I said, "I'm inquiring about the advert in the paper." She said, "Great, great." She said, "What qualifications have you got?" So I'm literally like, "Piers, what qualifications have I got?" He said, "Oh, you got Yachtsman's 1 and 2. I said, "Great," so I said this in the book. She said, "Oh, fantastic." So that sounds absolutely perfect. Give me your address, I'll send you the details. Can you be, this was like Tuesday, so can you be at Victoria Coach Station Friday, get my coach, go to South France? I said, "Yeah." So I give her my address details, and she's like, "Did I just hear this address?" I said, yeah, you spoke to my flatmate a few minutes ago. We used to work together in Cornwall." She said, "Great, I've got a team." So that night, Piers taught me how to sail. Couch, lamp, couple of extension cables. Friday, I'm on a coach to the south of France. The first week, we're tidying we're living in tents, literally. First week, we're tidying the camp up, making it all spick and span and everything else. Second week, the first lot of kids arrived. So I'm in my early 20s. The kids were literally 14-year-olds. So they're 14-year-old children. They all arrived. There was a guy in charge, he was ex-military and he was a master yachtsman. There were 6 sailing instructors, of which I was one, all the rest had actually sailed. He didn't know this, of course. We were told to be on the beach at like 8 o'clock that morning. So we get to the beach, he spaces out along the beach. 100 kids arrived, and all he said to them was, pick an instructor. Like 6 young 14-year-old girls come running at me and go, we picked you. I'm like, great. Guess where they were from? No. Newquay. They'd been sailing since before they could walk. They taught me to sail in that first week they were there. I had a fantastic summer after that. Here's what I learned from that. If you're very clear what you want and you're willing to take action, the universe will move. Things will happen that you cannot plan for. Don't get me wrong, you need a real plan if you want to achieve financial freedom. But there are things that will happen that you cannot plan for, which will support you, which will help you. What's really interesting about property, of course, is over the last 85 years, on average, property prices have gone up about 7.9% a year. Not linearly, of course, not every year, but on average across that period. So in the last 85 years, have the countries, the UK, had any challenges? Yes, but it's still gone up 7.9% a year. And we look back over that period with nostalgia. You watch a documentary on TV telling you how the country almost went bankrupt in the 70s under Labour. And we go, yeah, we nearly went bankrupt. My parents told me about that. I was a kid at the time. Well, property still kept growing. And you're thinking, why are you telling me this? What's happening right now? What's in the news? Brexit. So I've met people go, oh, Brexit. Better not buy property. You might as well say to yourself, better not become financially free because something might happen. Will change happen? Yes. Of course it will. Change is a constant. Things are always changing. What isn't a given, what isn't automatic, is progress. If you want to be happy, even though you're wired for survival, if you genuinely want to be happy, what will make you happy is progress towards a given goal. I'm here today to help you make progress. That's all it's about. If you just come here, listen to the knowledge, go home, go, I met this crazy guy called Paul, he was entertaining, he was funny, and you do fuck all with what I share with you. I swore to make an impact. Then what will happen? Nothing. So this is the journey. I want you to come on this journey with me. Environment is the most important thing. Get around the right people. Whether you do it with me today or when you do it with somebody else, get around the right people. That is what's going to make the difference. Because nobody, there's a quote, you know, like you hear this expression, self-made millionaire or self-made billionaire these days. It's a misnomer. It doesn't exist. Nobody is self-made. Nobody does it just on their own, ever. And why would you? That'd be kind of lonely, wouldn't it? It's like you need a team, you need people around you. And obviously in the beginning we're wired, there's a couple of things that drive us psychologically. Obviously getting together as a community is one. Why do we come together as a community? Because it increases your chance of survival. That's why it started. But we need that, we want that. All right, so somebody give me a figure then who, like financial freedom might mean a lot of different things, a lot of different people. So who read Tim Ferriss's book, Before Our Work Week by any chance? Anybody read that? It's a nice little book. And in there, of course, it was a big bestseller because of the idea of 4 hours a week and that's it. And the rest of your time off. And in the book, what was really interesting was he talks about what do you actually do with all your free time. When you've got kids, you don't have any free time, but you know, what do you do with all your free time? So financial freedom might mean different things to different people. But ultimately, also within that aspect of it, there's a figure that you're looking for. So I'm going to suggest you get very specific about what that number is. We live in a monthly society, we live in a society where obviously you pay your bills on a monthly basis. What's that number for you? Like 20 years ago, when you want to talk to people, we say, oh, I want to make millions, I want to make billions and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But I've seen a big shift in people, where people are getting to the point where they're saying, actually, making millions isn't really what it's about. It's about making enough to live the lifestyle you want to live. Does that make sense? And so Andrew might say, well, I want to get to a place where I'm making $50,000 a year. You know, before you get out of bed. You might be able to, but he's not looking too excited about that. But maybe that's his figure. And it's kind of like, okay, that's good. For some of you, that might be what you're looking for. And I can show you to do that. Or maybe Greg's going 50,000, doesn't even cover my sandwich bill. I need a bit more. So maybe you're looking for 100,000. So 100,000, like £100,000 a year before you get out of bed. Okay. Again, the art. If you raise your arm this much, it tells me something about your level of commitment. If you raise your arm this much, it tells me more about your level of commitment. So get engaged. One, you'll enjoy it. One, you'll learn more. Your nervous system needs to be activated to learn. So make sure, obviously, fully engaged. For 1 day only. Play full out. That's just a little contract. Who's willing to play full out 100% for 1 day only? Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, cool. The rest of the year, you're not going to learn so much, and we will promote you home. All right, so property. Let me get into the slides, otherwise I get too distracted and I go off on tangents. There's a couple of things. This is the format of the day, so roughly 11:15-ish. We'll be in session, then we'll take a short break, then we'll do the second session. We'll take some lunch, then we'll do the third session. It says 4 o'clock. We might finish a little bit earlier, we might finish a little bit later. I don't know exactly, because I'm not so focused on time. I'm more interested in getting the information across to you. So I'm more interested in kind of teaching to a certain standard. Does that make sense? Yeah. And is that okay?
Yeah.
If we're not exactly, because I know there's some people like, you have a file of facts and you live by it. It's like everything's scheduled in. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. But I get that. I'm not one of those people. Now don't get me wrong, I had to learn to be a little bit more like that, to a certain extent. Because of course, January, we're coming to the end of January, it's all great. Who made any New Year's resolutions this year? Nobody? Wow, nobody in Wales made any New Year's resolutions. Cool. Obviously January, you see all of this, people making these New Year's resolutions, going to get in shape. Is one of the big ones. Going to make some more money, going to spend more time with my children, whatever. People make these things. And typically, I think statistically, what is it, January the 16th, people have given up on them? I mean, 2 weeks, literally. But of course, what happens, and I don't know if anybody been on Facebook? God bless Mark Zuckerberg. And you'll see on Facebook, I don't know, obviously your newsfeed does get tailored a little bit, but I saw all these adverts for planners. Get your new planner, new year, new you. And they've all got their different little system for how you're going to plan your life and nail all your goals and everything else. And of course, people rush out and buy these things by the thousands. I've sold planners in the past. Like we did it as a test to see just how many people actually buy these things. And you discover thousands of people buy them. They're all excited. The planner arrives. Some people spend more on them to get the leather one because it smells nice. Somehow, if it's made of leather, you're going to achieve your goals more easily. So they get this thing. They open it up. And there's a page at the front, set your goals for the year, your health goals, your money goals, your relationship goals, and they go, oh yes, and they write something down in there, and then it kind of like the next page is like a week overview, and you've got from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, it's like, oh, I've got to come up with a to-do list. So they come up with a to-do list. Here's what's really interesting. When I've looked at most people's to-do list, of what they've listed, 90% of it has nothing to do with achieving the goal. They think it does. This is what's really interesting. They think that what they've listed is going to make progress. No, it's not. It's just a to-do list. But then, of course, they tick everything off for the first week. So they get through the whole to-do list, and they feel great, ticked everything off. And I was on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, and literally somebody had posted this saying, made my to-do list, and I've ticked everything off today, I feel fantastic, I've ticked everything off. So, of course, being me, I have to challenge. So I wrote and said, so you ticked it all off, but how much progress did you make? Well, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? If you can't measure it, how do you know you made progress? See, this is the thing. People buy a planner, they don't know how to plan. It's a skill I had to learn. So I'm going to share bits of that with you as well. So, and I'm not going to stick to time, I'm going to stick obviously to get through the material that I want to share with you today. Rules of the game, one, try my jacket off the side. We've kind of started this already. It's kind of look at the world a little bit differently. Look at it through my eyes. I started where you are, similar about 15 years ago. I first started in property. I came to an event just like this. Obviously looking at somebody at the front, it wasn't quite as crazy as me, but still, I came in, listened to somebody for the day, made the decision to move into property, get educated, and actually do something with it. Along the way, I've made some tremendous mistakes. In my life, I've made extraordinary money twice. I've lost it twice. I had a friend of mine actually said to me, you know what, the next time you make it, what a concept. So that's what I've done. Along the way as well, I've surrounded myself with the right people, mentors. In 2014, I'd never been to South Africa. I actually went 3 times in 1 year. Phenomenal country. I went to Joburg, Cape Town, Durban. So we did like a little tour. And there was me and 5 other speakers, different experts on different things. And so I got to talk to all of them. And what was really interesting, one of the guys there was actually a friend of mine, who I thought was going to be there, but then he was ill, so he couldn't be there. And so his mentor had come in his place. And his mentor's a guy called Errol. So I didn't know Errol, never met him. First time I met him, imagine a guy in his late 60s, hasn't looked after himself particularly well. He's a little bit shorter than me, so he's kind of rotund and so on, but never stops talking, absolutely hilarious guy, story after story after story. And so we're talking, we get on a plane to go from Johannesburg to Durban, so me and him end up sitting together, and we're chatting all the way through this trip. It's only about an hour's trip, but we're chatting all the way through. By the end of the week, we're like this, we're tight, we're like brothers, phenomenal guy. Turns out, he's a multi-billionaire. He turns out to be the most successful entrepreneur I've ever met in my life. In his career, he has built 47 businesses, one of them being property. Of those, 4 of them did over $1 billion a year in revenue. The rest of them did at least $100 billion a year in revenue. So if you met somebody like that, do you think you might learn something from them? So by the end of the trip, what did I say to him? More importantly though, I said, can we stay in touch? Will you mentor me? Will you guide me? Will you answer my questions? There isn't a problem he hasn't seen in property or business that he hasn't solved. He solved them all. With that kind of guidance, as long as you do your bit, are you more likely to be successful? See, this isn't about guaranteeing success. This is about minimizing failure. There's I'll give you 2 quotes. I know because some of you are thinking, why didn't you just get on with the property stuff? I will. But this is important. If recently I've been reading a book called Bold. I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic book by a guy called Peter Diamandis, who's extraordinary in his own right. But in there he gives two simple examples, which I think are actually cool. One is Charlie Munger. Who knows who Charlie Munger is? Yeah, so Warren Buffett's business partner. You know who knows Warren Buffett? Not knows it, but you know of it. So Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's business partner. And he made a statement where he basically said, one of the things that's allowed us as average people to do extraordinarily well is because we set out to answer the question, how do we be consistently less stupid? Not how do we be superbly intelligent, how do we be consistently less stupid? And that's a brilliant question to answer. I cannot guarantee you financial freedom because you've got to do your bit. What I can do, though, is help you minimize the risk of failure. Does that make sense? I can certainly do that to the point where, in my head, I'll be going 99.9%. If you just follow the recipe, you'll get the cake. And the other one is Jeff Bezos, who's just got, well, not divorced yet, but his wife just left him and became the richest woman in the world. So the guy who launched Amazon, and in a letter to his shareholders about 4 years ago, there's a nice quote in there. He said, he goes out, gets invited to speak, and people say to him, what's going to change over the next 10 years? He said, that's the most common question he gets asked. He said, but actually, he's not interested in what's going to change over the next 10 years. He's more interested in what's not going to change in the next 10 years. Because what's not going to change in the next 10 years? Property, certainly. Humans. Your psychology is not going to change in the next 10 years. Human nature is not going to change in the next 10 years. The way you're wired today is the same way our ancestors were wired. That doesn't change. Which is why 20 years ago, 2% of the population retired financially free and 98% didn't. And that's why 20 years later today, 2% of the population retires financially free and 98% don't. Human nature. Okay. So anyway, we'll see. As we go through this, I'll be testing your commitment. Don't worry, we're not going to get naked and dance around fire or anything, but I'll be testing your commitment. So hopefully through the day, your commitment will grow as well. One of the things I have noticed, when I share information, what happens in your head is, as you learn something new, you go, ooh. And what increases is your belief that you can get the goal. Does that make sense? And as your belief increases, you want your commitment to increase as well. So I'm going to be encouraging you to do that. So try my jacket on for size, think differently. Network, have fun, participate. I'm big on fun. Like, if it's not fun, don't do it. Years ago, when I launched my first business, me and a friend of mine said, look, every day we'll come together, we'll work our butts off, we'll do whatever it takes, but the day it stops being fun, the day we close the doors. And I've lived by that. Because what's the point? What's the point of getting to the end of your life, looking back over it, and saying, no, I didn't have fun? Enjoy it. Money's a vehicle in its own right. The purpose of money is to have more free time, buy your time back, enjoy your life more. Enjoy your life more, you want to contribute more. Contribute more, you make a bigger impact on the rest of the world as well. You have a legacy. So which might be why some of you are here, by the way. I mean, I probably should have said that. Maybe some of you are at a place where you're retired or approaching retirement, where you're maybe not so much thinking about yourself. Maybe maybe things worked out well for you, pension-wise, you're happy, you're comfortable. Maybe today's about legacy for your children or your grandchildren. We also have a unique situation in the UK at the moment where we have what's called the sandwich generation. So the sandwich generation are people who probably just inside the baby boomer, or maybe it's a generation X like I am. And so they've grown up, they've bought a house maybe 20 years ago, obviously they've got a huge, big chunk of equity inside there. But they've got aging parents as well. Medical science, we're living longer. But we're living longer, but not necessarily living better. So obviously what's been one of the big things that's occurred over the last 20 years is an increase in forms of dementia. So you've got a situation where you've got people literally sandwiched. Their children can't necessarily get on the property ladder. So what do? They release equity to help their children, because of course you want to help the kids. But they're also then in a position where they've got to help their parents who are elderly and need care. So they then get trapped. It would be nice to think that the equity they released meant they could do all of that comfortably. That's not what the stats say. Most of these people are releasing equity that they can't actually, which they need for themselves. So they can't actually do anything with it. If you understand property and use any equity you've got wisely, properly, the way I'm going to share with you, you could pay for everything. Quite easily. So, have fun, participate, network at the breaks, and there will be people in the room with significant amounts of equity or significant amount of liquidity. And what they may not have is time. And one thing I want to share with you today is like how to do joint ventures. Because no matter where you are on your property journey, everybody runs out of money at some point. So then you've got to raise more money to do more deals. So one of the ways of doing that is through joint ventures. So as you go through a network, find those people. You might have time, but no money. They might have money and no time. That's usually a pretty good start of a relationship. So network, have fun. So obviously when we're in session, we're doing content. When you're in the breaks, obviously start building your network. Hand raises, we've talked about a lot already. Raise your hand high. You'll enjoy it more, you'll have more fun, you'll engage your nervous system, you'll learn more. And of course, it's more fun for me as well. Take notes, make plenty of notes, write it down. If you've got an iPad or something, use the Apple Pen and write it. There's something about writing which really drives it in that you don't get from typing. I don't know exactly why, but time and time again I see this. So take plenty of notes, and of course, the mission to challenge you, we've already discussed, I've already got, and whether I have or not, I'm challenging you anyway, because that's what we need. Okay, so this is Aaron. I'm going to be sharing with you Aaron's property system. So Aaron has become a mentor for me in terms of taking me to the next level in property. And Aaron himself has now got like 200 properties in his portfolio. So he's been on an amazing journey. He started out, when he first came out of college, he was a mortgage broker. And in his first 6 months as a mortgage broker on a commission-only basis, he made like £2,000. So not a huge success in his first 6 months. Which meant, of course, that the guy who ran the company said, look, let's have a talk. So they sat down. And the guy actually handed him a book. Anybody read Rich Dad Poor Dad?